Welcome everyone to the first in our series of short records management training sessions from Team IM. Today we're going to introduce you to the basic concepts of records management and show how traditional records management has evolved over time into modern record management. To understand records management, let's first understand that every organization is the sum of its transactions. So regardless of whether your organization is a manufacturing company, financial services, government entity, or even a nonprofit, everything that happens in the organization is a transaction. In this example, we've got a few transactions that are commonly used in manufacturing companies. Now, traditionally, each transaction has some kind of paperwork with it. When you took the order, it was on a paper order form, often in duplicate or triplicate. Someone created a bill of materials needed to make the product, someone else created and scheduled the work order or authorization to make the product in the factory. And once the product was produced, a packing list would be generated, and the product would be packed for shipping, and a bill of lading would be created to load the truck, and finally, an invoice would be created. All of this paper would float around the organization, and at some point, get thrown away. And this is where records management comes in. The organization would look at each piece of paper to determine how long to keep each one. For documents that were kept 30 days, there would often be a folder in the department for each day of the month, and every day that folder for the current day would be taken out, and the old documents would be shredded and new documents would be put into it, and then each month more documents would go in that same folder. For longer term storage, the documents would be sent to the records manager, who would put them in boxes, label the boxes, and then store the boxes in some kind of storage either on-site or off-site. Eventually, the records manager would have a storage area that's filled with boxes containing different types of documents, and it was the job of the records manager to make sure that the boxes had been saved long enough and then get removed from the storage when they're supposed to be removed. To keep track of how long the documents should be stored, records managers would create something called a file plan. And the file plan is very important and is often communicated across the organization to make sure everyone is aware of any legal requirements. For example, we keep orders 25 years potentially because of warranty issues, and we keep invoices 7 years due to regulatory requirements in the United States. Now eventually, the paper-based system had to adapt to the world of electronic transactions and digital paperwork. Now the obvious solution was to simply tweak the current paper processes. Instead of boxes with labels, now we have folders with labels. And beyond that little change, it was the people who were still shuffling documents around the organization, and the only change was that they were digital documents instead of paper. The records manager was still trying to make sure that they got all the right documents and then deleted the documents out of the folders when it was the right time. Of course, there were problems with this approach. Digital documents are easy to copy, and even though the records manager got rid of the official record of something which was stored in a folder, maybe there were several other copies still lingering in the depths of the network share in different folders. While the records manager had their copies neatly organized by document type and year, the business was busy creating folders by country and region and client, and copies of the orders and invoices were littered throughout those folders. Now the organization was keeping documents too long and not saving others long enough, and generally having a miserable time trying to stay in compliance. With modern electronic records management, the problems associated with declaring records and managing the folders, keeping track of files, is handled in a more elegant way. The folders are replaced with metadata. Metadata tells us everything we need to know about a document. Previously, this was done in a network folder structure, and when different people needed different metadata, they would create their own folder structure and store additional copies of that same document. In the world of modern electronic records management, metadata attributes are added to each document, and those can then be used by different people to browse and search documents as needed. Sales may want to browse invoices by country and then by client, and finance may want to browse them by client and by month, and records managers may want to view them by document type and date. Instead of a single folder structure defining the metadata is used to deliver a browsing experience based on any combination of metadata attributes. So the records manager also has more information about the file now to help implement the file plan. We know for any document with a document type of order, the retention should be 25 years, and the document type of invoice, it should be 7 years. But we're missing something in our file plan. Our invoice has 3 different dates: the invoice date, the due date, and the date paid. We're supposed to keep our invoice for 7 years, but 7 years from which date? And the same is true of the orders. We had multiple dates, and we don't know which one to use. As we transition to a modern electronic records management, our file plan needs to expand to use additional information. For each document, we have to know the retention period, but we also have to know when we should start calculating that retention. Records managers often call this the trigger criteria. What triggers the retention to start? In a world of paper, we would often declare a piece of paper a record and send it to the records manager, who would just know the answer to 25 years after what date. With modern electronic records management, we build our file plan around that knowledge and answer the after what question. Using the metadata associated with each document, we can fill in a more complete file plan that includes the trigger information and answer that after what question. We're now in a good position to leverage modern electronic records management. As with before, the organization is thought of as a series of transactions. Each transaction can have a document associated with it. However, now those documents are automatically tagged with information, and instead of people shuffling paper or sending electronic files via email, our records management policy automatically determines how long we keep each piece of data without the need for intensive daily reviews by records managers. In our next session, we'll use the basic ideas about a modern electronic records management system and begin learning how to build a real-world enterprise records management system. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next session, and we look forward to helping you on your records management and compliance adventure. If you'd like more information about how your organization can benefit from a modern electronic records management implementation, please contact Team IM.